Good to see everybody. It was good to see our 53 out there during practice. It was good to see let's call it the new additions via, trade, claim, practice squad signees and acquisitions. So that was good to see out there. Obviously, it's still fluid, so there'll still be additions and, changes that will be ongoing, but it was a good start for where we're at today. From a roster standpoint, I'll start off with this. Dan and I said from day one that we're going to add, or we will have players that we love. We'll have players that we're excited about, that we see the vision for, that we see fit. And when we say we see fit, it's not just schematic and scheme-based. It's, we want to make sure we have guys that are gritty, high-passionate football players that respect the game and play the game the right way and go about things the right way. And I think we stuck to that, and, we accomplished that, up to this point. With the decisions that we had to make from a roster standpoint, it was actually rather easier due to the process. And, we always say, it's one pride and it's one team, and everything has to marry up. And it starts, the coaching staff doing an amazing job coaching these players, accelerating their development, having them prepared for these preseason games and equated to exciting practices, through, let's say, elite teaching. And over to the personnel department, those guys having a sound evaluation process and them grinding, all day and all night to search for the best football players and make sure that we have the best guys for our team. And so all of that married up. And so when Dan and I made those decisions on the roster and who was going to make this football team, it was actually rather easier than what at least I initially thought it was going to be going into it. But I'll say this, Dan and I are always on the same page. We're aligned, and so because we see things the same way in terms of what we see the vision for our football team, the players we want, it was a pretty seamless process. Take any questions.
You talk about kicker situation a little bit, so you guys let go both kickers while you have kickers. Let's talk about the decision to upgrade a kicker.
Yeah, so we had Randy, we initially had Matt, and then we brought Zane in just to keep going, have ongoing process in the competition, and we felt that the competition wasn't actually settled, and so that's when we went ahead and added Austin via claims, and it was a guy that we all felt collectively good about as a group, and so we're happy to have him. But just to still be able to bring Zane back on the practice squad, we just felt good about that decision process. If you want to call it a competition, but it's just we just made a decision just to have two kickers and have one on practice squad.
Really quickly to Austin.
Yeah.
There was several kickers out there of varying degrees of experience, several names though. What set him apart from that group?
Well, he's got a lot of pop in his leg. He's done it. He's been consistent. He's got experience. And so, again, we don't make the decisions about, okay, this is the guy we want. Like, we sit down as a staff and a group and have it go through a process, and so Austin was a guy that looking throughout across the league, will he be an available option? He might not be, we're not sure, but when he happened to be, then it just made sense for us, but we felt really, really good about it as a staff.
Curious about your receiver situation. Can you walk us through what you saw in the two new guys that we were playing with trades and then the decision to carry seven?
Yeah, so we felt like it was the best seven, Now, the two new additions, obviously, I had previous experience with Kadero Hodge back with the Rams. Actually, it was a tough decision back with the Rams that when we tried to get him through practice squad, and old John Dorsey just went ahead and claimed him and got usage out of him. But, it was good to bring him back. He's a guy that can play outside. He can play inside. He can run. He's got length. He's got speed, and he's another body that when you get into the depth of the wide receiver room, he can contribute on special teams, and he's been a good special teams contributor. And then with Trinity, you know, credit to our director of pro scouting, Rob Lohman. You know, he comes to me and says, "You've seen this Denver receiver," and I said, "Who?" And he said, "Trinity Benson." And I had the same response as probably everybody else had, and I said, "Who the hell is Trinity Benson?" But when I first watched the tape, I was like, wow, and he just popped off. He had juice, you know, he had explosiveness, you know, his upside as a route runner gets you really excited for a young guy, and then the more work you do from an intangible standpoint, he's a tough kid that's a hard worker, he's smart, does things the right way, so that's kind of when I called George and kind of see if we could get something worked out. But credit just to the process, because even identifying Benson, it was still, he had to go through a process where he was compared to a lot of other wide receivers across the league and on our own football team. So it wasn't that it was just, oh yeah, he saw some guys that's making plays in a preseason game. No, like, let's see if he truly is, you know, the best fit for us, and we felt that way.
When they say, you know, there's no number one, they may not have heard of some of the guys at the back of the roster. So it seems like a weaker position, I guess.
Yep.
And maybe 7 not being necessary in that regard. Why 7 might feel different?
You know, we're just compiling the best 53 football players, regardless of, you know, we're not going to eliminate a good football player because it's an overkill at a position. So, you know, when you look down, you know, you get to Tyrell and Khalif and St. Brown, and then you get to Cephas, and, you know, then you get to Tom Kennedy. And it's like, well, Tom Kennedy, he's had a hell of a camp. You know, it's not like, oh, we got to Tom Kennedy. Well, you can't keep him because now you're at 5 and 6. And no, Tom Kennedy earned it. He had a great camp. And so he made plays. You guys saw the preseason game. So, and he did it all out there in practice. So we're not going to avoid. Now, there's tough decisions you got to make. Obviously, we know that. But, you know, we're not going to just go less just because we have to go less.
Brad, it seemed like maybe some tough decisions along the defensive line with how well some guys played in the preseason. Just where's your comfort level with that group? Looks like the bring talent pretty deep there, especially with Rockers getting rolling now. Maybe, Dan, if you can comment too, just what do you like about that defensive line heading into the season?
You know, I love where we're at up front heading into it. And, you know, we knew coming down to it that we would be relatively deep there. Obviously with the development, and again, credit to the coaching staff, but how quickly that in Aleem McNeil, you know, quickly got developed, you know, how Levi, you know, when he kind of was able to get back out there more, he just kept getting better each week, and then each game it showed up. So, you know, when you draft these guys and they're rookies, it's like, you know, you hope that they can contribute, but you don't know how quickly that they'll get acclimated. But, you know, Aleem actually earning a starting role for us. And then, you know, Levi seems like, you know, right, he's going to be a contributor for us, at least at this point. So we feel good. And then the other guys, you know, Brockers, we know who Brockers is from a veteran presence. You know, we feel good about the direction that he's heading into week 1. But, you know, you got guys like Kevin Strong that had a good camp. You know, John Pennicini, you know, he's been a solid rotational contributor, you know, at the nose tackle position, you know, and even Jay Sean, you know, when he's able to come back. So we feel really good about it. We know it's a deep group, but we knew that we might have had to make some tough decisions that were good football players for somebody else maybe.
I'm wondering, one of your biggest evaluations all season is going to be quarterback Jared Goff.
Yep.
I'm just curious, how do you fairly evaluate him all season when the wide receiving core is not considered obviously the strength of the team just yet?
Yeah, well, that's a subjective view from a wide receiver standpoint, you know, and I get what the outside narrative is. That's not what Dan and I see, you know, on a regular basis in practice and when we evaluate the guys. So I do think that Jared, you know, that you can fairly evaluate him because he's throwing some guys that are getting open, that are creating separation, that have explosiveness, that are making tough catches, that are being where they're supposed to be. So, Jared is a very accurate quarterback, and, you have receivers that are getting open, and at the end of the day, that's what the receiver's job is to do, is to get open and catch the football. And so I think it's been it's fair. I think it's been easy to evaluate Jared up to this point.
Still y'all first year together, and I said y'all in line, y'all in the scene together, but as you go through this process, though, it's still your first time. So, like, how much did this, it's still a development process, what did you two learn about each other throughout this time? I know you guys say you've been in line, but just going through this, is it a lot you learned about each other in the process?
Well, I will say, I think Dan might have mentioned after the Indy game that might have been an arm wrestling competition, but I wasn't going to try that, first of all, anyways. But I would say working through it, with Dan, again, just because we see we're cut from the same cloth and we see things eye to eye, it was a very seamless process. It was a smooth process. I mean, we might have had some longer discussions on 2 guys, maybe 2 to 3 guys, maybe. But again, I don't view like disagreement as, a negative. I always viewed it as a learning experience to get better, because, you hear different views, different opinions, different viewpoints, and it's not, we've always said we're taking the ego out of it, so as we go through this process with the ego removed and then our intuition delayed, it's kind of been an easier process to hear maybe a different viewpoint from Dan and learn, okay, I didn't really see it that way, but hey, I'm glad you brought it up, and then vice versa.
To this team, there's going to be more additions down the line. Now, this is a fairly young team right now. They're going to be more going toward that youth movement, or there's some veterans out there that you have your eye on?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's hard to predict the future. We like where we're at right now, but because we can't predict the future, we just got to see how things shake out, in a lot of different areas. But there'll be roster movement. I mean, that's just the life of the NFL. But, with the youth movement, we didn't set out and say, hey, Dan and I were like, man, we got to get young. Like, we got to be young. Like, let's find the youngest. These young guys just happened to perform very well, and they were part of the best 53 players that that we decided on for the football team. But with the additions, we're not going to add and say, man, he better be young. He better be young. If it's a veteran player that's a better fit, and he's the best guy, he's the best fit for us, then that's where we'll go.
Speak to that a little bit, Dan. Just the youth. I mean, especially in the secondary, what challenges does that present for you guys as a coaching staff, and how do you maybe overcome that youth or get it to?
Yeah. Well, look, I think said this before, but Brad just said it. We weren't looking for the youngest guys possible. I mean, certainly if you have talent and you're young and hungry, I mean, it's hard to ignore those guys, and so that's what we feel like we got a lot of. And we've said it before that we were looking for the right guys for us and the way we want to be built. And so, look, there again, from a coaching perspective, you're going to have some growing pains at times. You will. But the important thing is that whatever mistakes are made, they're not repeated. And if you do that and they stay young and hungry, man, and they're eager and they continue to put the work out, and I think we have coaches that can develop them, good things will come sooner than later. And but I would rather make that move than I would some guys that maybe know what's going on, but they're past their due. They don't have it anymore. It's not worth it. That's where we're at.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the wide receivers, just to ask another one. Business model in the NFL, a lot of teams take this approach where you don't have a superstar jumping off the board in that group. Is this a point maybe in your tenure here where you immediately want to prove people wrong and say that you believe in this group, that you're betting big on this group, or is this something we should get used to across the league?
I wasn't trying to make a statement really per se, specifically to say, hey, look, man, these are the guys that I wanted to put together, and this is a point I wanted to make. I just truly think that the players that were already on the roster, the players that we acquired through free agency, through trade claim process, we just felt, again, those were the guys that were stacked versus other players, that we deemed better than the next option. So that's just how the decisions were made, but we feel really, really good about it. I know they say, like, these aren't the superstars that are jumping off the table, but Dan and I see the narrative a little bit different. We're probably a lot different than, probably the outside, but we feel really, really good, and we have faith in the group that we have.
Dan, you said the other day you're still looking maybe for some offensive line depth. I guess A, is that still the case for you guys? And then B, is it difficult to do that? It seems like a lot of teams are in this position where it's hard to find 7th, 8th, 9th guys around the league. So just how hard is that challenge?
Yeah, look, I think that, and Brad can piggyback on this, but there again, he kind of already alluded to the fact that these guys, man, he's scouring these transactions, and if we deem that somebody is more valuable and it makes sense for us, it's something we'd be willing to do, but we're not in any rush right now, but if it presents itself, certainly we would take a shot at it.
Yeah, we like the process that we have in place in terms of searching for that OL depth. And honestly, it's not like the guys are just growing on trees and just hanging out. I mean, you got to be pretty strategic and pointed, and you got to make sure you got a sound process in place to get those guys. But we feel good about our process that we have in place. But yeah, no, we're still looking to add.
Players in maybe position groups that are better than you thought they were a month ago, 5 weeks ago?
Well, I'll start at the let's say the running back position. We have some young guys there, and obviously we all well know, Swift and Jamal and what they bring. But when we drafted Jamar, he's a 7th-round rookie that we felt really, really good about in the process, but he's still a rookie. And, we weren't quite sure. Now, hey, look, I think any late-round guy or undrafted guy is going to have a hell of a chance, with the coaching that they're going to be receiving in Deuce Staley and Anthony Lynn. But we you don't know for sure, but Jamar is really – he's improved every single week, to the point where it's like, okay, the pass protection got better. What he's supposed to do got better. He's got natural vision, and to actually see it, come to life in practices in those games makes you feel really, really good and better about the position. And then Godwin's story is probably about the best story, that I could think of that occurred throughout this entire preseason camp. And guy that was at safety, and A-Lynn saw something in a special teams drill with the ball in his hand and, brought up the idea of maybe making a switch. And credit to him, he bought in, didn't bat an eye at it, and took it in stride and worked at it and worked really, really hard and got better every single week, to the point where he earned a spot on this football team. So I'd say that youth position at those running backs were really, really impressive.
What are your expectations for Swift? You mentioned just now, year 2. Obviously, we didn't get to see a ton of him here in the preseason, but what are your expectations for him in terms of production and workload?
Yeah, well, I expect him to be a weapon. That's what he is, in both phases, run and pass, so not trying to put a number on how many plays he's going to play or how much time and all of that stuff. We'll let that organically play itself out. But he's had a good week of practice. He looked good out there today. He looked explosive. He's got juice, and he showed that playmaking ability that he has a brain. So we're really excited about him.
Close the circle on the young secondary, going back to maybe something I asked you before the draft about adding veterans to that room, and you kind of pointed to offering. So I'm curious, with the way that this room now is structured, how much does that speak to the confidence you have in Aubrey as a developmental teacher and coach?
Yeah, I've always said that AP is, if one of not the best DB coach that I've been around. He's extremely impressive in the way that he teaches it and in a very digestible manner that allows players to learn quickly and play fast. And the energy that he brings to that group, it correlates, and it resonates with the players, and he just relates to players, both on the field and in the classroom. And the other thing about Aubrey is that the players like playing for him because he cares about them as human beings, and it's not just what you can do on the football field. And so I think that sparks a lot of buy-in with it. But yes, feel great about him in the young secondary. And again, we didn't point out and say, look, we have to be the youngest secondary, and have to go young. But yeah, it is an injection of youth that we went about, and that we feel really, really good about. Hey, look, when we signed Jerry Jacobs and A.J. Parker as undrafted free agents, we didn't go in there saying, yep, this guy's going to be the nickel. No, it was like, let's see what happens. But credit to Aubrey and his teaching, coaching, and AG as well.
For Brad and Dan, do you feel like you guys know what the strength of your team should be and could be? If so, what is it? And do you both agree on what it is?
Well, I would say that we have some strengths on both sides of the ball. We do see it eye to eye, but I'll say I think our offensive line would be a strength. I think our running back position is a strength. And I think that we want to be able to run the football, but I believe that we have the staff in place and the personnel in place, to have those expectations. And then on the other side of the ball, our defensive line, we got some dogs up there up front, man. I say, look, the development of the rushers, at outside linebacker, Sept's done a heck of a job, and when you add on, you got Dom Capers, and those guys, when we added them and when we first came in, there were some question marks. We didn't know. And so now, obviously Romeo, we know what Romeo is, but even Romeo looks even better, this year. Charles Harris, when we signed him in free agency, watch him practice today. He's gotten better, and I'm not sure if it's the scheme, but I do think it is the coaching staff. And then obviously we talked about the youth in the secondary, but our safety duo, I feel really, really good about it. Will Harris, he's I say the acceleration of his development, how quickly it has gotten to in terms of knowing him when he came out of BC and then seeing him early on, you got to be really, really excited about that. So I think it's strengths on both sides of the ball, in my opinion.
Yeah, he pretty much nailed it. That'd be everything I was going to say. And I agree. Look, it is a young secondary, but those corners are coming along pretty good. And Will Harris and Tracy they've had pretty good camps now. And Will may have grown. Will and Amani may have had two of the best camps of anybody on our roster, as a matter of fact.
We'll see week one.
I am curious about Sewell. I want to ask about Sewell. We've talked to Dan quite a bit about him.
Yep.
Brad, what have you seen from him through this whole process, and where do you view him and his readiness?
Yeah, well, I believe that he will be ready for week one. I think he's ready now. He's going through the normal process that a rookie would go through, regardless of where he's drafted. That's a tough position to play out there on that island, and he's sat out for a year. So what he's done. Now I know it's magnified about what may be perceived and seen as a hiccup here or there, but it's so much other good stuff that may be kind of hidden when you really deep dive the film, little subtle nuances that he's doing that is going to make a big difference. But, I think he's gotten the work that he needs to get, both in the preseason games and in practice, going up against Romeo every day. Again, I was just talking about Romeo looks even better, after we paid him. you know, and we felt good about him when we paid him. Now it's like, wow, but he's going every day. He's getting them better. You know, the other night versus Pittsburgh, you know, he's going up against a real guy, you know, and that's work that he hadn't experienced before, but it's just going to make him better going forward.
Look at the roster, you know, I know people across the league will maybe compare your position groups to the other teams in your division, right? You just sort of get a sense of where you are. How do you feel about, you know, your roster as a whole and the chances it gives you this fall? And that's ultimately what matters. So,
look, we wanted to be the most competitive roster that we can put on the field, you know, starting week 1. And, you know, I was just talking about it. We wanted to be better in week 2. We want to be better in week 3. So we feel really, really good about the roster. It's young. You know, it's a gritty group that they love football. They're eager. They're tough. And like what I was saying at the beginning, you know, these guys are fits for what we want to do and how we want to build it. So credit to the players themselves. They went out there and performed and earned it. And that's all really we can ask for, and then we'll just see where it falls.
Yeah, you said you feel pretty confident with the defense. How aggressive are you going to be in the first game, first quarter, second quarter, to make a statement and let people know that you're here to make a hard statement on the defensive side?
I mean, on both sides of the ball, you know, ultimately we want to win, you know, but regardless of where that statement's made, whether offense or defense, you know, we feel confident, you know, on both sides of the ball where we're at. But, you know, yeah, we want to be explosive on both sides of the ball, you know, whether it's, you know, shutting down or, you know, dictating offensively. But, yeah, that's the ultimate goal. But, you know, we feel confident about that.
Not really a roster question, but we don't get you as much, obviously. We get Dan every day. He's getting a lot of attention as well, just with the way he's open and honest with the media, you know, just a lot of attention and entertainment standpoint. What's your thoughts on how he's dealt with the media so far early on and just kind of bringing the attention to the Lions in that manner? I mean, the Lions haven't got a lot of national attention just with the coach as well. So what have you thought about his interactions with the media early on?
Well, he's got I'm trying to think the best way to sum this up.
Next question.
I'll say this, I don't like following him up. I'll say this, so that's probably the best way that I can say it. You know, starting back to, like I always said about our introductory press conferences, you know, I was glad that I went first, you know, and I didn't have to follow him up. But, no, look, Dan is 100% authentic and honest, and, you know, he doesn't BS anybody. And, you know, that's very, very refreshing, and you appreciate that.
Seems perfect to ask you about the tight end position. You guys are a little light there, but do you like what you have with the 2 veteran guys, and do you have enough there to get what you want done offensively from that position?
Yeah, we do. I mean, because Fells is a veteran, knows how to play. He's come on the last week and a half or so. You know, you feel pretty confident about him. We know he can block, perimeter, pass protect. He plays big, you know, he can catch those stick routes and sit routes and that, and we know what Hawkinson can be for us. And then we kind of got the emergence of Cabinda. You know, Cabinda he's a fullback, but yet there's some things we think he can do for us outside of that. And so, and then Brad did a hell of a job getting us some guys on the practice squad, you know, that we think can help us a little bit. You know, we got Jared Pinkney yesterday, and we got Brock Wright back, and so we feel pretty good, you know. And look, we're going to line up with the best personnel group that we can for San Francisco, and whatever gives us the best chance to win, we'll do it, and we'll use those guys. Let me say this too. This was from an earlier question, but as it pertains to Brad and myself, we're fortunate that we see things very much alike. But he mentioned this. One of the best things about it is, even when we have these rare moments where we may not agree, both of us can sit there and listen to the other's viewpoint and understand for a minute, you know what, let me sit in his chair. If I was in his chair and I'm thinking like he's thinking, knowing that he deals with personnel and not just now but long term, what would I do? And he has the ability to sit where I am. if I'm trying to get things done now and I'm trying to put out the best team out on the field, what would he think? And so I think that goes a long way, and not everybody does that. And he said it. We tried to keep the ego out of this, which we've done. And man, that's how you get results. That's how you get results. So it's been awesome. It really has. And it is. That's how you get the results that you want to get.
One last thing, just on the Benson trade, because I got to ask this. Mike Ford was claimed by Denver. You guys got Benson. Was there any chance of a deal there for Mike Ford? How much competition do you think you had in Benson? Why'd you have to make a trade?
Benson. So as we're, let's say, stacking wide receivers across the league, that we may think may be available, or is not a team's number one wide receiver, or whatever the case is. Obviously, he popped off in the games, but when we started stacking him, he kept rising as number one. And so as he kept rising as number one, then that's when I called George. But, Mike Ford, he never came into the discussion or conversations in our negotiations. So it was, we threw out a player here or there, but George never asked me about Mike Ford, and I never brought him up.
Process, you just didn't want to risk not getting Benson, I guess?
Yeah, we just felt that confident about him. Is that, hey, look, let's just get him. He's got a bright future. He's got a lot of upside. He's young. And, again, as we kept stacking, again, it's a collaborative effort. So it's not just me and Rob Lohman thought that he was the best. It's me and the rest of the personnel department. It was Randall L saying, yes, he's the top guy. It's Dan looking at him and saying, oh yeah, I really love this Benson. It's a collaborative, so it's total buy-in to make you feel really, really good about it and say, hey, look, maybe you can just sit back and wait and put in a claim and see if you get lucky, but no, we felt confident enough to say, look, let's just go ahead and see if we can make something happen to go get him.
Thank you all.